So now that we've filled out an entire table, let's go ahead and make a graph out of it. We have our angles, we have our distances. Let's actually change the name of distance. I don't like that name. Let's call that follower height. But, and you might notice that I'm using a different cam than you. That's because I don't want you to just steal my answers by going to the next video. But the idea is going to be the same. You still go from 0 to 360, and you're just going to have a different looking graph than me. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these columns. And I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to find Recommended Charts. I'm just going to click on the first one. I'm going to make myself a quick chart here, a scatter plot. And okay. And then I can drag it over. I'm actually going to make it a little bit bigger. So let's drag that out a little bit. And we can change this chart, our title. I'm going to change it to the name of my cam. You can change yours to whatever cam you are working with at the time. So heart cam, or heart, I should say heart 3 cam. That's because there's multiple heart-shaped cams that we worked with. Then we can start adding things to this chart. We can start working with it. First off, I don't like the fact that it's stopping at 400. So I'm going to double click on the numbers in my x-axis here. And well, if you can see, I can change my minimum and my maximum. If you can't find it, that's okay. Make sure you are in, make sure you're on the horizontal value axis. And make sure, well, you want it on the actual axis here. We don't want to be in text options. And we're on the graph option. Make sure you go over to this graph option over here, or the axis options, I should say. And let's change the maximum to 360 degrees, because that's what we're going to. And then it should auto update to -40. For some reason, it wants it to be 400. I'm going to put that back to 0. And then I'm going to make this go up every 15 degrees. And so now it's rising every 15 degrees. I can close this out. I'll open that back up in just a second. See, what else do I want to add? Well, I also want to add, some axis titles. So what I do is I click on my graph, and I go over here to the right. You'll see this green plus sign. I click on it, and I'm going to turn on axis titles. And so I can go ahead and label these axis titles. I'm going to change this to angle. Make sure we don't capitalize and use proper grammar here. And then I'm going to go ahead and highlight this, and I'll call this follower height or follower displacements, something along those lines. Then we can mess around with it a little bit more. We can make this y-axis. We can make this a little bit more detailed. So how do we do that? Well, I'm going to right-click on the y-axis over these white numbers over here, and I want to add minor grid lines. You can see, well, it's kind of hard to see the grid lines here because they're so faded. You might not even see them in the video. But once you turn them on, you should see little faded lines in the middle. I'm going to double-click on my major grid lines here, so you can see the blue dots pop up around it. But once I've double-clicked on them, I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to change the outline of it. And I want to make the outline a little bit darker. And okay, I've made that outline a little bit darker. Then I'm going to double-click on the minor grid lines. They should be very faded. And if you didn't turn it on, make sure you go rewind the video, find out how to turn it back on. But you can see how when I double-click on it, you can see my minor grid line dots have turned on. I'm going to right-click on that now, and I'm going to change that outline. I want to make that a little bit darker as well. And so now hopefully you can see these minor grid lines. But that's pretty much all we need to do. We can edit it a little bit more detailed. We can double click on our y-axis here, and we can make our minimum instead of 0. We can make it a little bit taller, or a little bit higher up. So we make it 1 instead. And enter, and you can see what that does. That makes the bottom of my y-axis 1, and the top 2.8. We're zoomed in a little bit more, and I can make it where the minor axis goes up every 0.1. Or the major axis goes up every 0.1 instead of every 0.2. If we click off, you can see now it's going up by every 1. And then I can make this, well, I want that to be 0.02. That way it's 1/5. I want 5 dots in the middle. But then you can look at this a little bit more detailed. You can see where every number is. At 45 degrees of whatever this cam is, we can see the height of our follower. We can see the height at 75 degrees, and you can kind of compare it, and you can see how it goes up and down as the chart goes, or I'm sorry, as the follower, or as the cam turns, it pushes the follower up. You can measure the distances, and that's kind of the point of this graph. You can play with it a little bit further. You can play with the different options here, and make it look a little bit nicer. You can change the color of our chart, or our graph itself, right? Let's see here. I want maybe outline, and you can, yeah, we can make it different colors and have some fun with it. But here's the idea.